Welcome to the regular meeting of the El Centro City Council for Tuesday, February 17th. First item on the agenda is a roll call, please.
Mayor Silva.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Jackson. Here. Councilmember Sanders. Here. Councilmember Cardenas.
Present.
And Councilmember Villegas Walker.
Here.
Okay, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Cardenas and the invocation by Councilmember Sanders, please.
You guys join me in the flag salute. Ready? Begin.
Our Heavenly Father, we've come this evening in the most humble way that we know how. We're asking for your divine intervention as we deliberate on issues that are so valuable and important to the members of this community. Each one has a unique experience and a unique opportunity to be of service. So we ask that you would help us as we move through this process. Lord, we also ask that you would keep us mindful of those who are less fortunate, those who are homeless, those who are sick, and those who may be incarcerated. We ask that you would circle them with your angels. Those who are ill, touch them with your hand of mercy. Those who have paid the ultimate price on the battlefield, we ask that you would send them the Holy Spirit for comfort. This is our prayer in your Son's name. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders. Next item on the agenda is report on closed session for both the last piece of the February 3rd meeting and also today's closed session meeting.
So this is the report out for the February 3rd, 2015 meeting. On a motion by Councilmember Villegas Walker, second by Councilmember Jackson, the City Council made a closed session at 9:06 p.m. All council members were present. Reports were given to council on the two anticipated litigation significant agency items. For information only with no action to report, closed session concluded at 9:49 p.m. And that concludes my report for February 3rd. For today, February 17th, on a motion by Councilmember Villegas Walker, second by Councilmember Cardenas, the City Council made a closed session at 11:30 a.m. All council members were present, with Mayor Silva arriving at 11:32 a.m. There was an added item to closed session as the council determined that there was a need for immediate action which could not reasonably wait for the next regularly scheduled meeting. Moved by Mayor Silva, seconded by Councilmember Jackson, to add the pending litigation entitled City of El Centro versus Reina L. Mercado et al. Bureau County Superior Court case number ECU 474 to the closed session agenda. The motion carried unanimously. A report was given by staff in regard to the added item, and direction was given to staff with no final action to report. Norma Villatania, Community Development Director, participated in the report. Council heard a report from Ruben Duran, City Manager, and Terry Brownlee, Human Resources Director, concerning personnel matters. And there is an agreement with the Assistant Community Development Director coming out of closed session for audit. Council met with its labor relations negotiator, Ruben Duran, City Manager, and Terry Brownlee, Human Resources Director, concerning labor matters. There is no action to report. The direction was given to staff, the City Manager, and City Attorney for the labor relations portion of closed session at 12:55 p.m. A report was given to the council on the anticipated litigation agency item. Direction was given to staff with no final action to report, and closed session concluded.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, we have a number of scheduled comments, public comments, and obviously there's one that's a lot of interest to most of you here. So we're going to begin pursuant to the agenda with a presentation of the City of El Centro's homeless support efforts, presentation by our Economic Development Director, Marcela Piedra.
Council. Hopefully this is on. This presentation actually is a follow-up to a presentation that was done by Mr. Daniel Ochoa. You may recall that back in January, he came before council indicating or expressing the need for the city to consider establishing a homeless shelter, particularly for men here in the city. And so as a follow-up to that presentation by Mr. Ochoa, staff was directed to meet, even though we are part of the Imperial Valley Homeless Task Force that meets on a monthly basis, we decided to meet and talk about the homeless situation here in the city of El Centro. Very pleased to inform that on February 2nd, we had a very good meeting. We had representatives from various organizations, including the County Behavioral Health Department, that actually participated in the meeting and was able to provide information as to the situation and the resources and services that we have available here in the city of El Centro and, of course, countywide. And what I have prepared here for you is a presentation indicating some of the support that the city has contributed and some of the efforts that we also provide in terms of addressing our homeless situation. As part of the meeting, we also had city staff. We had Norma Villacaña, our Community Development Director. We had our police chief participate. And we also had members from Catholic Charities, Women Haven, the Calexico Neighborhood House also joined us in this meeting. We had Ken from the United Way organization, which is leading basically the point in time or is leading the effort in the point in time count that is a national count that needs to be done for homeless throughout the United States, and that's typically done in January. And you'll see some statistics that were incorporated as part of this presentation. So with that background, I'll go ahead and start with the presentation. Let me see. So basically, in Imperial County, obviously, we have the presence of homeless, and it's becoming an increasing problem for our communities. In January 30th of 2014, when the point-in-time count was done by a group of volunteers just throughout the Imperial County, the estimated homeless count at that point was 298 individuals in Imperial County. Of that 298, 99 were in El Centro. Based on some preliminary data, because on January 22nd of this year, we once again did the point-in-time count for Imperial County, and based on preliminary figures, even though the committee that's working on having this count updated indicated that in the city of El Centro, our homeless count for this particular period of time was 138. So there was an increase. Of that 138, 58 were unsheltered, meaning they were not part of a transitional, housing unit or on an emergency shelter. 58 were unsheltered, and 80 were sheltered, meaning that they were in some type of transitional housing unit or in a shelter environment. Going back to, even though, again, the numbers are being compiled and verified for the number I gave you, of the 298, though, that was reported last year, 99 were female, 207 were male, 77 were under the age of 18, 8 were between the ages of 18 and 24, and 213 were over the age of 24. Some of the factors, obviously, that are contributing to the rise in the homelessness include the lack of affordable housing, persons whose income level fall below the poverty level, reductions in subsidies to the poor, and obviously some issues with drug, alcohol abuse, and mental illness. In terms of the city's efforts in trying to provide assistance or services, partnering, our major efforts fall under the umbrella, basically, of our community development block grant under the consolidated plan. And basically, these are the strategies that are included in this plan that the city obviously addresses. We reach out to the homeless persons in assessing their individual needs. Again, we're part of the Imperial Valley Homeless Task Force that meets, and it's basically a group of different organizations that meet on a monthly basis to identify their needs and also coordinate a major event, which is Project Connect, which the city does participate. Also, in our meeting that we had on February 2nd, we had our current chairperson of the Imperial Valley Task Force, which is Mr. Orlando Johnson, and he's with us tonight too, available to address any questions. We also assist in addressing the emergency and transitional housing needs, helping homeless persons make the transition to permanent housing, help individual families avoid becoming homeless who are receiving public assistance. The following are specific actions that the city takes to address homelessness. Again, we work directly with the Imperial Valley Homeless Task Force, which under the federal recognition, it is known as the Continuum of Care Committee with regard to addressing homelessness. The city does provide, as you're well aware, funding to nonprofit organizations such as Women Haven and House of Hope that provide direct services to the homeless, specifically women and children. The city's an active member of the Imperial Valley Homeless Task Force and attends the monthly meetings. The city participates in the annual Project Homeless Connect event, which is typically held February, March. For this year, it's going to be held in March, and it's actually held at the National Guard building on 4th Street. City staff participates in the Emergency Shelter Grant Applications Ranking and Rating Committee. The Emergency Shelter Grant is basically federal funding that is available for local nonprofits to, again, continue expanding the services to the homeless population. We participate in that rating and ranking committee. And of course, we facilitated the roundtable discussion with various agencies regarding the possibility of establishing a temporary emergency shelter for men and transitional youth between the ages of 18 and 24 years of age. As part of the discussion when we had our meeting on February 2nd, we had the Imperial Valley Regional Occupational Program. We had a representative from there, and he indicated that based on certain clients that they're seeing, there is a specific need for this transitional, what they would characterize or describe as a transitional youth group, that they don't have housing available for this group. And so that was another need that was identified in addition specifically to obviously providing a shelter for men. So what we hope for is that we continue having on a quarterly basis or as needed basis even more frequently meetings with these specific groups, and we talked about the possibility as part of the homeless task force to rotate our meetings to the different cities, because every city is unique and faces perhaps different challenges when it comes to the homeless population. And so part of our follow-up to the meeting that we had in February was to continue this dialogue and meet with specifically with city representatives to talk about our issues and really provide targeted efforts to deal with our homeless, which for us as a city obviously is very important. You know, we're obviously hearing that we're doing our major redevelopment on Adams Park, and we know that our homeless obviously gather there, and so for us it's obviously a very timely discussion to determine what's going to be addressed in that particular area. So basically, these are, again, some of the specific actions that, that we do in relation to the homeless. Just a quick summary, since 2005, you may recall that we became an entitlement city in 2004. So in 2005, since 2005, basically up to, date, we have provided to Woman Haven, which runs an emergency shelter and transitional housing center, we have provided over this period of time, $159,174 for them to operate their two shelters. And for Catholic Charities, specifically for House of Hope, we have provided $108,500. So total, we have invested a little over $200,000 to assist the homeless population. Again, specifically targeted to women and children that need this type of service. So this concludes my presentation. If there's any specific questions you may have, we do have, again, our chairperson from the Imperial Valley Homeless Task Force, which was also going to specifically go out and meet with our faith-based community, since they also provide certain assistance, obviously, to this group. He was also going to go out, again, as part of, the conversation we had in February, to go out and outreach and find out what kind of services do they have available and how we can partner and leverage our existing efforts.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Pedra. Any questions from the council to Ms. Pedra? Mr. Hernandez?
Again, I appreciate the presentation, and Ms. Piedra, is there anything different that our city is doing or not doing in retrospect to some of the other cities in terms of addressing the homeless issue, whether it's Calexico, Brawley, anything different or anything that you can maybe bring to the council that we should maybe be considering?
Well, to give you a specific example, the slide that I have before, in front of you, and obviously in a different council item, we do have a presentation on, specifically on the CDBG program. It is my understanding that from the CDBG, our city, and perhaps it's because we are an entitlement city, even though public services is an eligible use under the CDBG program, specifically, we do provide funding for Woman Haven and Catholic Charities to operate their emergency shelters. So that's something different perhaps that, you can see from, in comparison with other cities. Again, we were very excited, very motivated that, to continue the dialogue as far as looking for resources for our homeless population. And we're part, obviously, of the Homeless Task Force. But again, as a result of the roundtable that we had, we figured, it is important for us specifically to meet with each individual city and talk about our issues.
Yeah, and just in terms of just homeless, the definition, and that's kind of where I struggle a little bit. I know that, for example, if there's a woman who goes to a shelter, she does have an address, but she goes to a shelter, is that person considered homeless, or is there some sort of definition that they're looking at to determine, what is a homeless person?
Basically, and I'm going to try to, I guess, go based off of the federal definition. Basically, when you have an individual that does not have a permanent home, they're considered homeless.
Okay. All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Ms. Walker?
I have two questions. Thank you for this presentation, Ms. Biedra, very timely. Number one is, have we been able to validate whether or not there's a fluctuation in the homeless population? I would imagine intuitively it tells me in the summertime we have fewer people that are here that are homeless. Have we been able to validate that, and is there much of a fluctuation?
Well, basically, as I indicated, on an annual basis, and for whatever reason, our federal government decided that in
That's
January is
snapshot
when
in
we
time.
basically, do the point-in-time count. That's what's considered nationally. I believe, and probably maybe Orlando can mention or provide some feedback on this, that's when all of our volunteers go out and do the effort in terms of trying to count all the individuals. And even then, we believe there's an undercount because it is difficult basically to count these individuals, along with also it's a challenge trying to get them resources because you really don't know where they are, and they're very mobile, obviously, in nature.
Would you agree, Mr. Johnson, that there is some fluctuation? We haven't quantified it, or?
There is a fluctuation, obviously in the summer, the
Yeah.
and be here in the winter. There's some fluctuation, but it depends on economic situations. When times are tough, the people where they can get the lowest cost of living.
Yeah.
And it seems to be here, but they're transient from other cities.
That kind of segues into my second question, and that, Ms. Biedra, you looked at factors contributing to the rise of homelessness, and I'm going to put them in kind of three buckets. One, let's call them economic challenges, so lack of affordable housing or income below the poverty line or reduction in federal and state programs to the poor. So we have economic challenges contributing to homeless. Then we have the drug and alcohol issues that may or may not be tied to mental illness. I want to kind of put those in two separate categories. Seems to me we spend a whole lot of time and effort looking at the economic challenges because that, I think, is a little easier to address. What are we able to do, or what can we do, what have we done with regard to the drug and alcohol abuse and or the treatment for mental illness to help these folks?
Well, basically, that's where you partner up, and that was a specific issue that the Imperial County Behavioral Health Department addressed or mentioned, that's where they provide that assistance, because obviously they're qualified to provide this type of assistance. As far as from our nonprofits that we have provided funding to, we haven't provided direct assistance for this specific type of assistance. But the Imperial County Behavioral Health, and they're obviously willing to partner up with us in terms of providing this type of assistance.
Well, let me ask a related question to that, because the four factors that contribute to homelessness, do we have a sense, Marcela or Orlando, as to the percentages where each of those category applies? Is it more in terms of the lack of affordable housing? Is it more an issue of reduction of subsidies to the poor? Is it more an issue of drug and alcohol abuse? where is the greatest need, if you're able to answer that?
By then.
Yeah.
And maybe, I'm not too sure if when we go out and do the count, if those are specific or detailed questions.
Oh, excuse me. Well, it's not well, like you said, it's not something that we address in the homeless, the count that we do. But in my experience in the last few years of doing the count, most of it is as a result of affordable housing, because we provide services to the homeless. We find out that they do have some source of income, social services or retirement income. They just can't afford to pay rent, utilities, and so forth, or food. So there are programs, other agencies that can get them into housing, but there's not enough of it here in the Valley because we have such a high number of homeless. And quite frankly, not necessarily homeless individuals that are on the street, but people just can't afford to pay rent or to purchase a home. So they end up living with a family which is technically homeless.
How much of another factor that I've heard people tell me is that there are some homelessness that could, in fact, seek shelter somewhere, but because those shelters typically come with rules.
Correct.
What time beds allowed, no smoking, and other kinds of rules that they choose.
Correct.
To still live in the park or other places instead of going to a shelter facility. Does that exist to your
Yes,
knowledge?
it does exist. But, each shelter has its own rules. Like, say, for instance, in Calexico, they didn't have the stringent rules that, say, Guadalupe Men's Shelter has, which is Catholic Charities Men's Shelter in Calexico. They didn't have the strict rules there, so there was no drug and alcohol restriction, but they did have other restrictions, because they had a combination of field workers and homeless as well. So when you really break it down, it's a matter of the shelter's rules. Each one has different rules. If they have a standardized rule, usually it's clean and sober, and then no fighting and no animals unless they're service animals. That's usually the key.
Okay.
And then there's a small fee. I think they're charging $5 a day, something like that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jackson?
Yeah, thank you. A couple questions, and I guess to follow up on,
Oh, I want to make a correction. Martha Ranson's right here from Catholic Church. She says they're not charging $5, so. Okay, they're not charging.
Orlando, to kind of follow up on something you said earlier, when you're talking about, and you're doing your counts, is there any mechanism to find out, are these homeless from here? You were talking about transients coming from other areas. Do we have a large portion of these what are being classified homeless that are Valley residents that just can't afford housing and they get pushed out on the streets? Or is there an influx of transients just because of interstate aid or whatever the case may be that they're ending up here and they have no way to get out of this area?
I don't know what the share of percentage that are transient from other cities, but in doing the count, I've counted a number that were from outside the Valley. There is a significant number from the Valley. A lot of people from the Valley usually end up with their families, but for some reason they end up, outside the family for some reason, probably for drug or alcohol problems. But there is a percentage that is from outside the Valley. That number I couldn't tell you.
I'm Martha Ramsey, Catholic Charities. I'm part of the count as
Yeah,
well.
she's the vice chair for the homeless task force.
Actually, the point-in-time homeless count is really mostly an observational activity. It really is going around and counting people we see. It's a very small percentage that we actually do interview. So it's very hard to answer that question. I think Orlando's experience is that but in general, on the point-in-time count, you really can't even tell you which ones of the people we see fit in which category. Most people we know usually have a whole range of things. It's not probably several things. That's the one dilemma about the point in time count. It really is a snapshot.
So I guess there's no way of knowing what brings them to Imperial Valley, the transients.
Well, I mean, we could find out when we do our point-in-time count. That's just something on the intake sheet that you can add, but for HUD's purposes, that's not something that they would ask. For our purposes, we could probably add that to the list to see, what their reason for being here, but, for HUDs, it doesn't ask for that.
And a follow-up question, maybe, could you let us know what kind of success or failures or obstacles you had with the Calexico shelter? I know that it seemed, from information I was getting, you have a lot of, maybe not traditional homeless, but a lot of field workers that just
Yeah.
didn't go home. Understanding that that's the proximity to the border, but what do you think your success rate was on actually serving the homeless community as apart from the farming community?
It was probably 70-30 on the homeless. There's a small number on the field workers. There's, as someone was telling me, they get up at 2 or 3 in the morning to prepare for work. There were 4 buildings. One was for admin, and one was for homeless, one was for field workers, and one was for families. So the ones that were homeless, obviously had to be out by 6 in the morning. That was the rules. Those that were working in the field had to be out by 3 or 4 in the morning. But there was a small number there, and those are the ones that can't afford because they're sending their money back to their families in Mexico, which is technically homeless for them. But for services, though, that wasn't the target for Calexico, was for them. It was for the homeless that were on the streets with all these other problems.
And you said families. Are we talking families with children? Or are we talking couples?
Yeah, families with children, husbands and wives. There was one building, I believe, for that purpose. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 families, not correct, that were homeless, and there were some that were workers in that same situation. So there was a mix.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Anderson, any questions?
Perhaps not a question, Mr. Mayor, but thank you very much. More of an observation.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. As an observation, I know that we all recalled at how happy we were when Chelsea Homes, and we don't call it Chelsea Homes, moved in over here on North 8th, and that was set aside, and some of our partners were, in fact, behavioral health when we put that facility together. In addition to that, we're working closely, Mrs. Pedro, are we not, with the Housing Authority as they move forward with trying to make sure that there are spaces available that we would categorize as affordable. Now, affordability is a relative, I think. Much of the things that we noticed when we were doing the 2010 census was that individuals were falling on hard times as it relates to jobs. Their jobs had played out, or their jobs were temporary, or they were underemployed, if you will. Employed but underemployed. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Underemployed meaning that whatever they were being paid was on a part-time basis and not full-time basis, which then did not allow them the resources necessary. When we talk about how are we going to pay rent, the rent also requires that they pay a first and last month's rent,
Correct.
plus utilities. So when you add all of that together, it does make it a very cumbersome for individuals who are down on their luck or underemployed to find particular housing that could be available. But the question that was posed to me by several individuals was, El Centro has a lot of buildings in its downtown area that are vacant. Why couldn't we use those buildings, if you will, to house the homeless? My response, and I need some help from my colleagues as well as staff, my response was, we don't have jurisdiction over those buildings. The property owner would need to avail themselves to allowing them to be utilized for that purpose. Then the liability and the insurance that goes along with it would be something that I don't think the city would have jurisdiction to do. And I need some help from my colleagues and from my staff and from the city manager. I don't know that we would be able to put that together. We tried to do that once upon a time when we had more funds coming in from CDBG. But when that bottom fell out of that and our funding was reduced, that did not prove to be successful for us. Mrs. Pedro, had that question came up at any time during the time that you were discussing things with behavioral health or some of the other partners?
Actually, that was one of the specific issues that was discussed, the particular item, the particular building that we were looking at, because we realized it actually is suitable, and that's where we do the Project Connect activity that we do on an annual basis for the homeless, is the National Guard building on 4th Street. However, we do understand, and actually Mr. Johnson did outreach to them, that it's a staffing situation, that at all times they need to have a staff member there in order to be able to accommodate that. But as part of, again, that roundtable we held on February the 2nd, and actually, Mrs. Ranson was the one that shared, I guess, a scenario that they have in San Diego, where they're actually rotating with the different nonprofit groups and
Staffing?
giving some funding so that some of these groups, nonprofit groups that are providing services to the homeless, could rotate and maybe take a certain number of individuals and assist them for that particular month
As far
or
as
quarterly
staffing?
basis.
For staffing purposes.
For staffing purposes,
Yeah,
to actually take them in.
yeah.
That's correct.
The shelter may be available. The question is how it would be staffed. And now some of the nonprofits are, well, some of the nonprofits, if you'll just allow me to complete my statement, please, Ms. Hanson. Some of the nonprofits are saying they might be willing to consider that on a rotation basis. Is that?
The way the Interfaith Shelter Network works in San Diego County is that the parishes, the churches agree to take a shelter slot. They may take 2 weeks, and maybe they can house 10 or 15 or 20 people. The agencies make the placements. The case managers and the agencies will place the participant in the shelter. Then the church staff are the ones that actually staff it through the night. And so the church makes a commitment to take care of people for 2 weeks. And you'll hear parishioners talk about, oh, I had a shift this week, I did whatever, I played games with the kids, whatever. It turns out to be a very strong mission piece for the churches. And the agencies then continue to do the case management work off-site. They don't necessarily do it at the churches. But it ends up being a way that people get the attention they need with the lowest cost possible, because you're not paying for a building. The liability for the people is taken up by the church, and then, of course, the agencies have their own ethics in terms of working with people. It's worked very well, and the director of the Interfaith Shelter Network has already spoken with our executive director, Sister Ramonda, and has agreed to come and talk with us about how we might do that here, share their wisdom and how it works.
I guess that would be the topic for your next meeting.
Yeah, well,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
It'd
Thank
probably be
you.
several meetings.
All
But
right.
we're really excited about it because we've already had many churches come to the homeless task force to talk about what their mission already is. They're already feeding people and already people distributing clothes. Maybe this would be a natural extension of their work, because it's not such a huge commitment that they'd be out. You know, we're asking for a week or two of sheltering. You can tell us how many people, and then we'll work with you to help place those people and then help them get out of homelessness.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for the time. I have
Thank
no
you, Ms.
further
Sanders.
questions.
Well, it's obvious to me that this is not just an El Centro problem. This is really a regional problem in which there is no easy resolution to this. Later on today, we're going to talk about the distribution of CDBG funds, and we have $40,000 available and $200,000 worth of requests from public entities. And all of these resolutions require resources to make them happen. So knowing those parameters, knowing those restrictions, Orlando and Marcela, is there anything that the city can do additionally beyond all the efforts that you described that we can either implement as a policy or any other thing any other suggestions you may have?
Well, basically, I mean, obviously, the primary one being continuing to seek out partnerships, and that's why we mentioned about working with our local churches, since they are providing services to basically, the community in general, and just continuing to meet with these different groups. Obviously, I mean, we have groups that are working in San Diego, and they bringing their best practices over to us. So just continuing, obviously, to support, the efforts that we are currently doing, and obviously, as staff, we continue seeking other options, other alternatives, so that we can, hopefully, again, target the needs of this particular sector of our community.
Thank you, Ms. Pedro. Thank you, Orlando. Okay, we have a number of scheduled public comments, and they all relate to the issue on Planned Parenthood. Yes, but that also relates to,
Oh, right.
yeah, because I saw the background.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to make a statement just because at noon today, I got a couple of calls from people that called me asking me to support the council and not approving the action of Planned Parenthood and their establishment in El Centro. So I feel like I need to say that I hope you know that this is not a matter that is before the council today. It's probably a matter that will not come to the council for action. It's a matter that will be discussed with the hospital board. So I just want to make sure that people understand, one, again, that it's not an action item today, and second, we do not expect this to be a council item to come forward for approval. So within those parameters, I want to make sure that people understand that. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people that would like to speak to us on this topic. Also, so that the full council gets a sense of who's here. If you're here because you are opposing Planned Parenthood opening a business in El Centro, please raise your hand. Okay, the vast majority of you. Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, we'll ask Nicole Rothfleisch, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, with Ameris Ministries.
Thank you. Good evening. Nicole Rothfleisch.
Okay.
And just to, if I might address quickly what you just mentioned, the fact that the hospital is a city-owned hospital, I believe it is an issue that you should consider at the city council level at some point. I want to speak about Ameris Ministries, which is a local 501c3 nonprofit with a business license here in El Centro, and we are an adoption foster care ministry. Our mission is to help place infants and children, regardless of ethnicity, age, or special needs, into Christian foster and adoptive homes, and to remove perceptual and practical barriers to adoption. As a resource for women facing unplanned pregnancies, we are committed to offering a safe, confidential, and pressure-free environment for women facing unplanned pregnancies to receive counsel, support, referrals, and resources to help them make the best decision, whether it is parenting or an adoption plan. If a woman chooses to parent her baby, we will provide her with resources and referrals for help with parenting classes, diapers, maternity clothes, baby clothes, mentoring, and more. If a woman chooses to make an adoption plan for her baby, we will provide her with profiles of Christian couples hoping to adopt so she can choose and meet the family that she wants to have raise her child. We will walk her through the process of open, independent adoption. We also work with the county on helping place foster children into foster and adoptive homes, and we're really just a resource of information for our community, and so everything about adoption, foster care, so we want you to be aware of that. I don't know if you all saw the Imperial Valley Press today, but there's a really interesting article on the front page. Humane Society reaches vital goal, no-kill shelter. And I'm just going to mention a couple of quotes out of this article. 96% of the animals that have left our shelter have found loving and forever homes. This becoming a no-kill shelter has been a dream. Then it goes on to say they have to give special thanks to the community. Our community really stepped up to the plate to help get this done. The community saved all these animals. This is our little dog Marley. And my family adopted little Marley a little over a year ago, and we love little Marley, and we are very excited about the no-kill options for the animals in our shelters. But if we as a community are going to celebrate no-kill options for animals and adopting animals into loving forever homes, how much more important should it be to celebrate the option of no-kill options for our babies in our community and adopting them into loving, stable, forever families? This is the face of adoption. This is my little girl, Ameris. She was about a year old. And this little girl could have very easily had a different future. She could have been killed at the hands of doctors who have taken a Hippocratic oath to help. She could have been killed in what should be the safest place in the world for her, in her mother's womb. But I'm so thankful to God and to her birth mother that instead she chose life and she chose to make an adoption plan. This is her. She's 6 years old now with our little dog Marley. She is just the light of our lives, and we love her so much. And we at Amaris Ministries want to help make this possible for other babies, for other birth mothers, for other families here in El Centro and the Imperial Valley. This little girl is so loved. It's my husband and I with her. And we want this for the rest of these children. And we hope that you will do whatever it takes to make a stand for the children of our community, and that you will celebrate no-kill options, adoption, loving, life-affirming options for the children of El Centro and our community at large, just like we're celebrating them for the animals.
Thank you very much.
Do you have any questions?
I have just one question there. Ms. Rothfeld, in terms of rescue surrender or surrender rescue babies, do you guys play any role in that at all?
We do, actually. We have a relationship with the County Department of Social Services, and as we work to recruit, train, and support foster and foster adoptive families, and we work with the county to help place children into those homes. Our families are also available for safe surrender babies. In fact, just a few weeks ago, one of our families completed adoption, had the court hearing for the adoption here for one of those safe surrender babies, and it was just really something to celebrate. It was beautiful.
And so, and how regularly is the Department of Social Services reaching out to you in terms of placement of children that are unwanted?
There are a lot of children there that they call us about, and we're really glad that they do. And we're just hoping that the community continues to step up and families come forward, and we're happy to help walk them through the process, but they do call us regularly for help with that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Breathley. Okay, due to time constraints, I'm going to try to keep speakers' comments to 3 minutes. There's a clock that you see on the screens, and please try to abide by that time frame. I'm not going to cut off people, but when you see that your time is over, please see if we can ask you to begin to wind down your comments. We have a long agenda, but your comments are very important to all of us. Okay, Pastor Chris Nunn.
All right, good evening. How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Good. I'd like to begin by reading an excerpt from a city ordinance. Actually, it's an amendment to the city code that many of you helped author. It says this. It says, in order to serve the public health, safety, and welfare of residents and businesses within the city of El Centro, the declared purpose of this article is to prohibit hookah parlors in all zones where they're operating as primary, accessory, or secondary use as defined in this article. That was voted on and approved by 3 of you members who are sitting here tonight. According to this city ordinance, hookah parlors have been banned based upon adverse effects of the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and businesses within the city. I'd like to take a moment to address just a portion of the adverse effects that abortion has upon the health and welfare of our residents. Approximately 10% of women who have undergone an induced abortion will suffer from immediate complications, of which 1/5 of those are considered to be major complications. A woman who has undergone an abortion is approximately 4 times more likely to die in the following year than women who carry their pregnancies to full term. Women who have aborted in the year prior to their deaths were 60% more likely to die of natural causes and 7 times more likely to die of suicide. Legal abortion accounts for the 5th leading cause of maternal deaths in the U.S. Women with a history of 1 abortion face 2.3 times a higher risk of having cervical cancer. Women with 1 or more, or with more than 1 abortion, face nearly 5 times the risk of having cervical cancer. The risk of placenta previa, a life-threatening situation for both the mother and the baby, in latter pregnancies of women who have had abortions increases by 15 times. Women who have had abortions are 2 to 2.5 times more likely to have subsequent preterm deliveries. Women who have had an abortion are 80% more likely to visit their family doctors for physical reasons and 180% more likely to visit for psychological reasons in the year following their abortion. Abortion has been significantly linked to behavioral changes such as promiscuity, smoking, drug abuse, and eating disorders, all of which contribute to further increased health risks. These can all be found at afterabortion.org. These numbers do not lie. Allowing abortion into our community will affect the health and the welfare of all of the women who seek out abortive services from Planned Parenthood. The reason that you had for banning the hookah bar should stand the same when it comes to abortion. Opponents of the pro-life perspective have accused us of being unsympathetic towards the needs of women, but I can honestly say that we are fighting for the best interests of women. Tonight, you will hear testimonies from women who have been bound by the guilt and shame that are associated with their decision to abort their children. It's my desire to help spare the further hardship to other women and heartache that they've endured. And we understand that for every brave woman that is going to stand before you tonight and to tell their story and to open up their hearts about what they've been through, there are thousands more that suffer in silence. These women just wish that there had been someone who would have stood up for them when they needed. Now, I've passed out to each of you a copy of a law that expressly states that it is the discretion of the hospital to decide whether or not to enter into this transfer agreement. I hope you look that over later. I've also included in that packet petitions that we have had going for 2 weeks that number 1,561 signatures thus far saying that we do not want abortion in our communities. Also included with that packet, there's a CD. And on that CD, there's an interview that happened yesterday with an attorney by the name of David Gibbs. He helped us find this language. He helped us find this. This law is from the California Health and Safety Code. It's dated January 30th, 2015. Very relevant. Only a few more points, I promise. All right? If the Board of Trustees should decide to sign this transfer agreement, the issue will undoubtedly come before you again, as you will be called upon by your community to use your authority to rescind that decision within the 30-day time frame. You have a moral responsibility to represent the desires of your community. That's why you've been elected. And your constituency is not split down the middle on the issue of abortion like the rest of the country is. Your constituency has voted 73% pro-life. 81% of voting Latinos vote pro-life. These are the people that you have been called upon to represent their voice. In the denial of this transfer agreement, you would have the support of your community. In the denial of this transfer agreement, you would have the support of the law. If this agreement is signed and not rescinded, this will happen on your watch. And so I ask you, is that what you want your legacy to be?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have a couple follow-up questions. He did provide a transfer agreement, and I'm just wondering if our legal counsel is going to be looking at it, or have you seen it
I
at
provided
all?
an extra copy that the city clerk has, so I actually brought 6 copies. So there's a copy of the entire packet that each of you has, that if she would like to review that, that'd be great.
Thank you, sir.
Would that be appropriate, Mr. Mayor, that she does look into this and provide some sort of legal opinion, authority, in terms of this as being valid?
Not at this point in time. I think that if anything, we need to allow our attorney to look at this.
So would it be okay that you maybe address what are our next steps and what is, I know that there's a Board of Trustees meeting on Tuesday. And what will happen after that meeting in terms of us being provided, the council being provided as far as the next steps?
Mr. Mayor, as your representative to the board, if there's, you're a representative to the Board of Trustees for the hospital, as you know, that we normally report out. So following that next meeting, which is scheduled for next week, if there's any action that's going to be taken, I will report it out at our early meeting in March.
So in March, there would be a report out in open session as far as what were the outcomes of that meeting, of the Board of Trustees meeting?
Correct.
If there was something that was done in an open setting environment, if it was done in a closed session environment, I will not be reporting out because it would violate the closed session or confidentiality, but I will be reporting out to the council at its next regular meeting, which is the first meeting in March.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Marty Ellett, please.
Good evening, distinguished board, Mr. Mayor. My name is Marty Ellett. I work at the El Centro Hospital Emergency Room, city-owned hospital. And I somehow get the feeling that you're suggesting that you don't have any influence over the city-owned hospital, the board that is appointed by you. But that's not what I'm here to talk about.
Okay.
This is, as you are all receiving right now, cards and materials from the Real Hope Center. This is a model of a 12-week-old child, 12 weeks after conception. Most of us believe that life begins at conception. I know Barbara Boxer believes that life begins when the child is born and not before that. But it's not my opinion, it's not a religious opinion, it's the opinion of scientists that study fetus, fetology. They believe, the scientists say, that life begins at conception. This is 12 weeks. This is the first trimester. This is the size of child where most abortions take place. This child, the heart starts beating in 18 days. I'm going to round it off to 20 to keep it simple for us. 20 days, there's a heartbeat. In 40 days, there's brain waves. All the organs are present. This child can move, can suck its thumb. Everything is there. It just needs time to grow. At this abortion clinic that you say that you don't have any control over, this is the size of the child that's going to be aborted. A suction catheter is going to be inserted into the uterus of the woman. The suction is going to be on very high. And these little children, they don't have a lot of calcium deposited in their bones. The ligaments are not very well developed. You know, they're very, very soft and pliable. And a suction catheter, a strong suction catheter, is basically going to dismember this child, limb by limb. And that's the type of abortions that are going to take place if Planned Parenthood opens by physician assistants, nurse practitioners, and certified nurse midwives, not a doctor. And if anything goes wrong, these cash-paying customers that come from Mexicali, because they're not going to recoup their costs here in our little town, cash-paying customers in our, from Mexicali are going to come across, and anything goes wrong, they're going to end up at the hospital, and the hospital is going to assume all of this liability, just like that. We already lose $25 million a year in indigent care, and we're going to add to this tremendous liability. I'm just trying to take some of the craziness out of, the pro-life image to tell you what we believe and why we believe it, and that's why I'm here. I've got lots of other things to say. It'll be another night. I intend to contrast the pro-choice view with the pro-life view and demonstrate at another meeting that pro-choice view is simply not tenable. It is not defensible. So I just want to leave you with these. This is what we're talking about. A 12-week-old child. It's not a tomato. It's not a fish. It's a little baby. And this is what's going to be destroyed in this clinic when it opens, if it opens.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you, sir. Okay, Kathy Coronado.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am speaking on behalf of my own experience today, and I feel that it's very important that you listen intently to what I have to tell you. Although abortion is allowed in America, it is a very barbaric and hurtful and harmful procedure not only to the woman and the child, but to our society as a whole. I had prepared some information here that I was going to disclose to you, although it goes 7 minutes. And I cannot compound my experience into 3 minutes. So I'll just tell you the basics of it, is that 28 years ago, I worked for a large hospital conglomerate, Kaiser Hospital. I had a very good job and was engaged at 19 years old, excuse me, and on birth control, and became pregnant. And although we were looking at wedding information and stuff like that, we were not ready for a child. At least I was not, and I was very scared and sought the counsel of my family, to which they were under the notion that I should get an abortion. And not wanting to disappoint my family, I decided that would be what I would do. And I told my fiance what was going on, and he was against it. But after my prodding and telling him that, you know, we need to listen to what my family is telling us, then that's what we did, and he took me to go get an abortion. During that time, when I went into the abortion clinic, they ran a machine over my tummy, and I heard a whoosh, whoosh, whoosh sound. And I said, "What is that?" And she said, "Oh, that's just the baby, but don't worry, it's just tissue." Right at that moment, I knew that something was wrong. And I thought to myself, this is not right, I need to get out of here. But I didn't, I started to cry. And they gave me sedation, and I fell asleep. I went to sleep. And then, shortly after that, I had woke up, and I was in a room by myself, in the same room, and started to cry, and someone came in, and they said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Well, I guess so." And they said, "Well, go ahead and get dressed, and if you start to bleed in a few days, then you need to go back and see your doctor." And then I was shoved out the back door. I got in the car, didn't say a word to my fiance, came home, I dropped to my knees when we got in the driveway and was inconsolable because I knew that life had just been ripped out of me, and I didn't realize the decision I was making. I did not have any counsel to go by. No one spoke to me about any options. And from that moment on, my life began to spiral. I quit school. I started taking drugs, with pharmaceutical drugs. I suffered from migraines. I went through depression. I was being seen for depression. And then I became pregnant again, even though I was on birth control. My fiance did not know because I would not tell him. And I just knew what I needed to do, and I went through the process one more time. This time it was a botched abortion. This time I went through fever and bleeding, and I passed tissue, and then I went to the emergency room because I couldn't stand the pain, and my friend had to take me in. And the doctor told me, "We're going to do an emergency D&C on you." And then he came back and he said, "You must have had twins because there was a half a fetus still inside of your body." And I just thought to myself, what kind of a woman kills her children? Who am I? And so I, from that point on, continued to spiral down a road of alcoholism. My relationship with my fiance had been broken off. I had done very destructive things up to the point of even trying to commit suicide 3 times. I'm telling you that this is hurtful and harmful to a woman. This is not a matter of convenience. This should have never been my choice. It should not be your choice. And I am imploring you that no matter what leverage you have on this deal between Planned Parenthood and El Centro Regional Medical Center, do not allow it in this community. I implore you on behalf of my children who cannot speak for themselves and the children who cannot speak for themselves in this country who have already died.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie Backstein.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. I understand that I'm probably just a random woman from your community to you, and I understand that my story is probably just another story to you. I would ask you please for just the next couple minutes, consider what I'm saying is perhaps maybe a daughter, a niece, a neighbor, a good friend, somebody that you can make personal to yourself. I had my first abortion when I was 15 at Planned Parenthood in Las Vegas, where I'm originally from. The sheer terror of having to tell my mom way outweighed any risk that I already knew about. I had heard that abortions were bad and that I may have some mental issues afterwards and I could bleed to death and all the horrible things, but honestly, the thought of my mom killing me was way worse. So I ran straight to the clinic with my boyfriend as soon as I could get the money together and showed up, gave them a fake name. I was embarrassed. I lied and said that I was 18. I lied and said that I was married, and I gave them his last name. They never checked any ID or anything. They said, okay. I don't know why I thought it would make it better if I said I was married. I was so embarrassed. They never checked anything, so if anything would have happened to me on the table, say, you know, I died or was bleeding to death, they wouldn't have had any idea who was there in the first place. Again, I was 15. Nobody even said a word to me when I walked in, like, sweetie, do you want to talk to somebody? Nothing. It was, how are you going to pay? I paid, I went back, I experienced a horrible, horrible pain, like I can't even describe to you the pain of, I mean, you know, pulling a tooth is pretty bad, okay? Imagine having your insides pulled out. I was sent out the back door within minutes. There was no recovery time that I was told I was going to have. I was shuffled out the back door to meet my boyfriend, where I was still a little sedated, woozy, falling all over. Shuffled out the back at 15 years old. My life also spiraled downhill, and what Kathy was talking about is no joke. And every woman I know that has experienced an abortion is almost in the same broken spot. I have failed to meet any of these women who are proud of their abortions. I think it was a great decision. I've only met the ones that wish and pray that somebody would have stopped them. I ask you please to just notice that we're moving along technologically and we're finding out all these things, like Marty's showing you this little model. That's no joke. That's a baby in there. We're finding this out as we were told back in the 70s that it was a blob. Now we're finding out it's a real baby. And now I'm getting to see all these pictures of my girlfriend's ultrasounds, that there's a real baby in there. And at night, I'm picturing what Marty was talking about, those pieces of that little body being ripped out of me. When I look at my little daughter, who's 11 now, I picture, what if the baby looked like her? And I picture her as a teeny tiny baby, and I think, my God, I can't even imagine somebody ripping her limbs off of her. And that's what they do. It's suction. They're sucking the limbs off of these babies. And maybe you don't want to think about it like that, but after you've had it done to you personally, that's all you can think about. And I understand that maybe this is not in your power, sir. This is not something that you're going to address. But I beg you to find some way to do it. Do whatever you can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Danny Ramirez.
Good evening, members of the council and all the people in the audience. My name is Danny Ramirez, a resident of Calexico. I hope you don't hold it against me. All right. My wife, Lily Ramirez, is right there with the green jacket. She's on the board of Birth Choice, a crisis pregnancy care center. My wife, Lily, and me are the Culture of Life coordinators for the Diocese of San Diego, and also representing the Culture of Life Family Services of San Diego. We represent the tiniest, the weakest, the most vulnerable person, citizen, American in our nation, in our community, the unborn. And also, we represent protecting young girls. Did you know a young girl as young as 12 years of age, without parental consent, can obtain an abortion at Planned Parenthood? 12 years old. I have a granddaughter that is 12 years old. Would you like your daughter, Efrain, to go get an abortion without your consent, without you knowing about it? Or you, Alex? Or you, Cheryl? Jason? Sedalia? Grandchildren? Hey, Ruben Duran, city manager. Of course not. You want to be informed. All of us want to be informed. Abortion is an intrinsic evil. It is direct and intentional. Now, I want to ask you questions. Did you know, but you don't have to answer, I'll give you the answer. I'll put the paper in front of you. 1 of 8 teenage girls in the United States lives in California. Also, 1 of every 4 abortions in the United States occurs in California. Good old California. Why is the question? Because California is a pro-choice state. National Abortion Rights League ranks 75% of state assembly, 65% of state senate, and California's Governor Brown as pro-choice. California's elected officials are pro-abortion. There's no such thing as pro-choice. What choice do they have, these young girls? They have no choice. Everybody pushing them to go get an abortion. In 2009, Planned Parenthood gave 100% pro-choice scores to 24 out of our 40 state senators. You ever hear of Ben Hueso, Eduardo Garcia, Juan Vargas, and who's the other guy? Forgot his name. Thank God. And 49 out of 80 state assembly members all got 100% scorecard rating. That means an A+. I got a little more than 4 seconds. I'm going to take somebody else's place. But there is one exception. According to February 2009 polls by the Public Policy Institute of California, 68% of Californians favor a law that would require parents to be notified before a doctor performs an abortion on an under 18-year-old age girl. Now, the elections in 2008 was a near win for Prop 4. Y'all remember Proposition 4? Yeah. All you voters? Okay. The parental notification initiative in 2008 came closer than ever before. 48.04% said yes, all statewide, and 51.96% said no. The deciding factor was what? Money, dinero, cacharpa. The yes side spent how much? We, the pro-lifers, we didn't scratch up but $700,000. And the pro-abort side, Planned Parenthood, how much did they get? The no side, $10 million. So it was not bad for all going, like how many times? I'm not too good at math, but I know $10 million is a lot of money. Now, the prime example is right here, Imperial County, El Valle Imperial. This is a prime example. Imperial County produced the highest percent favorable Prop 4. Vote in the state, 74% yes. We have 58 counties, and this county brought up the most yes votes. Why? Hispanics are typically pro-life, but they vote stupid. Exactly. They're not informed, so what do? They vote for the pro-aborts. There ain't no such thing as pro-choice. They vote for the pro-aborts because, of the entitlement. It's an entitlement-driven society. We all know that. What are you going to give me? And I'll vote for you. So Imperial County has the highest percentage of Hispanic voters in the state, 68%. With a 80.4 Hispanic residency in an Imperial County. I'm almost through. Proposition 4 has weakened the opposition. Guess what happened to Planned Parenthood? It was a driving force and major funder to the no side against parental notification. A major whistleblower case filed by the Vice President, Finance Director of Los Angeles Planned Parenthood is proceeding to trial. That's Senor Gonzalez versus Planned, excuse for this word, Butcherhood. I've changed their name, okay? Isn't that Parenthood? One abortion, so much for parenthood, right? Parenthood. Golden Gate Planned Parenthood in the Bay Area, a major funder of the No on Prop 4 campaign, went bankrupt in 2010. U.S. Congress is investigating Planned Parenthood as we're speaking right now for the misuse of these funds. So, my friends, let us join 36 other states that have parental involvement laws. Let Imperial County take the lead again in 2016 with the Parents' Right to Know initiative. And ending, I beg you to stop Planned Parenthood from opening. I'll even get on my knees to do what I have to do to stop them from opening an abortion mill in El Centro. Help us protect our children as young as 12 years of age. Without your knowledge, are going to be able to go over there and get an abortion from Planned Parenthood if you, the elected officials, allow it. And there's a way to stop. I'll be at the hospital board meeting, and I'll tell you how we can stop it, okay? Now, parental notification protects girls from risky behavior, including STDs. And in closing, my wife and I, as the Culture of Life coordinators for the Diocese of San Diego, our obligation is to protect the most vulnerable children. So, amen, I say to you, as long as you did not do it for one of these least ones, you did not do it for me. And these will go into everlasting punishment, but the just into everlasting life. Amen. That's Matthew 25, 45, 46. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions?
Our last speaker regarding this topic is Maribel Flores. Maribel Flores? Not here. Those are all the slips that I had that relate to Planned Parenthood. Please, 3 minutes. Can you say your name for the record, please?
Yeah, my name's Major Jerry from the Salvation Army. And I like to say that what's going on here in the Imperial Valley, when I come in 10 years ago, was a valley of, as a family, a place where people could come and feel safe. Oh, it's not perfect. We have problems. But everybody worked together in solving the problems. What's happening here now, in this building going up, and having a front to say, we're doing this and we're doing that, and the back end saying, come on, we'll take care of your problem. We'll do away with that child. Think about this. What if you're that child? You know, what if I was that child? I wouldn't be here right now. I was raised in a dysfunctional family. I thank God my mom didn't have an abortion. But everyone you have the voice to make a change. And I'm pleading with you. We're the voice of those that don't have a voice. And those kids, when they do an abortion, that baby may be the next mayor of the city. When they do an abortion, that baby may be the next president of the United States. And you're denying that baby to be born, to have a voice as you have because you were elected, because you were not aborted. How dare we, as citizens of these United States, united, where we care more for the animals than we do for the babies? God help us. It tugs at my soul, my heart. But whatever is decided, we're going to have to pay for the consequences. And let those be the right decisions, that the consequences will be great for the valley, for these children, for these parents. Salvation Army is working to help these parents, putting them up in a motel, helping them to get ahead, to move forward, helping them whatever we can do. And I mean that. We don't need that place. We don't need it. We have these people here that have the information these kids need. And if these people do want an abortion, let them go someplace else to have it if that's how bad they want it. Let this community be a community of family that cares for one another and cares for these kids that don't have a voice. Please, I beg of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Esqueda, and thanks to all of you that came here for very heartful comments. This is a very difficult time for all of us on the council, I'd like to say. We appreciate you being here, taking the time. Your input is valuable to us. Like I said, this is not an action item today for the city council. The Board of Trustees for the hospital will have a discussion on this matter at the next meeting. We're not sure at this point in time, I'm not sure at this point in time what the nature of the discussion will be. But if it comes to the council, it'll come at a later time. So any comments from the council or anything?
You know, Mr. Mayor, I mean, it's very convincing to hear the opposition to this, and I would ask, although this is not an action item, but I would ask, why couldn't we have a joint session with the Board of Trustees so that we hear all the information? Well, I'm just not clear why that's not an option. And personally, I don't want to wait till the next 2 weeks. I want to hear firsthand. And what's involved for us to be part of this joint session meeting with our Board of Trustees. And I'll defer to legal counsel on that.
Okay. We'll discuss that at a later time. Yes, sir.
Why isn't the opposition here defending their position tonight? Try to get a hold of Juanita Salas, Planned Parenthood CEO here in El Centro, and you know where she's at? Under her desk, hiding.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and other people that are speaking to us in regards to other matters, I'll go ahead and take care of that now, so you don't have to wait until very late at night that we anticipate being here. So let's take a couple of minutes break, and then we'll adjourn in about 3-4 minutes.
I told Steve I'd be home at 7:30. Hurry up
Oh,
here.
I didn't even think, I thought 8:30, for sure. There are a number of people that requested to speak to the council, but I'm going to defer those comments into the actual item as discussed by the council. When we speak about the CDBG funding, we'll defer that, and also, there's another one. Mr. Giovanni, when we speak about the change of zone, we'll give you an opportunity to speak. Okay, okay, let's proceed with public comments so that we can take care of that agenda item. Let's see. Carlos Tigari with the SBDC.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. My name is Carlos Figari, and I have Katie Luna with me. I'm the director of the Imperial Valley Small Business Development Center. And what I came here to share with you is that we are starting a new program on the 10th of March with the purpose of reaching out to the businesses that have been affected by the major employer closures in Imperial Valley. And what I'm really looking forward to is helping people that have a current business, helping them increase sales, find out what can we do to help them reestablish themselves. And that is something, it is a six evenings, it's a fast-paced, accelerated program that is going to focus on 4 things: increase sales, increase profits, obtain financing, and gain market share. So I would like to share this with you because there's a lot of folks that have been affected, and what I've been finding that they think they're the only ones. And there's a lot of us here that have been affected, a lot of business owners, and I want to reach them. I want to find them, help them, and get their business repositioned so they're able to generate positive outflow for themselves. So that's something that we wanted to share with you, and we're excited about it. It is six evenings of their time, very hands-on situation. They're going to come to work. We're going to help them do it, find out really what the problem is, and get the solution right in those courses. So we're going to have 4 different courses throughout the year. One of them is going to be in Spanish entirely, and the other one's in English. So please share that
Awesome.
with people that you may know that may need a little help. And sometimes they already know the answer. They're just looking for someone to help them do it. And that's what we love to do. I have a great team at the Imperial Valley Small Business Development Center, and I look forward to helping them. Are there any questions?
Do you have a flyer, Carlos, or anything?
I
that-
happen to have them handy, and
Awesome.
I will leave it back there
Okay.
for you.
Okay. Any questions from the comments from the council?
Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There's 2 people that want to speak about lights. Juan Verdugo, and following that, Mark Gray, please.
Okay, Mark goes first?
Sure, go ahead.
Thanks for seeing me tonight. I'm the current president of IVGSL, a league that's been here more or less 50 years. Not the league itself, but where they play the softball games. It's primarily for girls. And after Emotional Night, it makes me even more determined to keep the league going because of these issues you see: abortion, girls getting in trouble, homelessness, and that's what we're here for. Right now, we've got roughly 200 girls registered. We're supposed to start Monday but I haven't got any response as far as our lights go. I know Field 2, lights have been an issue since Watson Electric fixed them, I think it was last year. They keep kicking off and on and off, and just really haven't been able to get any answers on that. I know Ms. Sanders has helped us in the past. But that's our main concern. I'd also like to ask the board to consider, the council members to consider some money allocated to field renovation. I know Brawley had Meserve Park done. They just had the infields redone. And it was roughly $8,000 per field. And that's just doing the infield. We have a problem with the dirt's just old, it's beat up, it's broke down. And with the chalk and the different things, it's a dust storm out there when the girls are playing. And it's just creating not only citywide problems, but just allergy problems for the kids and the parents. And with the watering issues too, we have to water it so often just to keep the dust down. It's just a problem. I'd also like to have some kind of streamlined system for me and the Parks Department manager, whoever that might be, so that we can just talk to each other if we need be. And I usually call. She's maybe busy or out of the office, and then we're volunteers, so our time is kind of constrained to, hey, I have 30 minutes to deal with the situation, let me give them a call. So if we can find a way to streamline the process, we're a 501c3, we carry our own insurance, so that's really not an issue. We just need a place for the girls. If you see the backstops, the batting cages, snack bar, the Connex boxes that holds our equipment between the seasons, we usually do a fall season and a spring season, that's all money donated by the league. The city hasn't really been asked to take on those costs. And softball people are fanatical. And, give you an example, my whole team has played at IVGSL. Now we're a travel team. The girls are about 13 years old. We went to San Diego, placed seeded number 2 on Saturday. And teams up there were upset, but there's so much potential here in the Valley, and IVGSL is where they get their start. So that's my main goal, is to just, I understand there's some issues with teams wanting to take ownership of the field or fields that they use, whether it be soccer, whether it be whatever it is. And we don't necessarily want to do that. We just want to do our fall season, do our spring season, have the lights. I filled out some documents for the lights and the paperwork. I believe it's all been filled out. We just haven't heard anything yet. I know this is kind of last minute.
So, I'm sorry,
yes.
but IVGSL, don't you play on the fields on the corner of Orange and
Pittman.
Pittman? So
Yes.
when you talk about field lights, I thought those fields aren't they lit already?
They are, but field number 2, we have 4 fields. The lights keep shutting off, or they tell me, like, I'll call Dolores, say, hey, I need lights on this. Well, we don't have lights on field number 2. For some reason, there's an issue there, and it's been ongoing for a while. And Watson Electric was the electrician that fixed it. Whether or not they're not being made to fix it, or they just don't want to fix it, I don't really know the issue there. But we've had, like, in the middle of a game, boom, half this side of the lights will go off. And so luckily Chris Lagakis is close, and I have his number. He'll call. I'll call him. He'll come over if he's eating dinner or something and adjust something or hit a switch. I know there's been issues with lights. It's done electronically somehow. I'd like to seriously go back to us manually shutting on and off. That way something doesn't, I know there's been nights where we had to cancel the game because of weather. Well, you have to have, I think it's 24-hour notice to cancel lights. So the lights will be on for no reason because of weather. So it'd be nice to be able to manually shut those on and off. Or just a contact that we can call and say, hey, game's got canceled because of weather. Can you shut the lights off? But sometimes we won't know that till late in the afternoon. So that's just my plea. I don't really have any documents for you guys.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Juan Verdugo?
Good afternoon. My name is Juan Verdugo. I live at 2491 Mayola. I'm also representing IVGSL, and I've been involved for the last, I would say 15 years or so with that league, with my kids, and I'm sure half the people here have been involved in that league, whether it's they were players or their grandkids play or their kids play. But I just want to reiterate what Mark said. We have the league starting on the 23rd, which is Monday. We like to see if we can expedite the paperwork as far as getting the fields and organizing the situation with the lights. I'm not quite sure what the problem is with the lights. I know the lights on Field 2 do shut down whether it's an electrical problem or a circuit or something, I don't know. But we would like to get a response from the city as far as the situation with the fields. Are we going to be allowed to use the fields, or is there a paperwork issue or whatever? So that if we do need to push back the opening ceremony, the starting of the season, we can do it and can notify parents. We've got 200 kids registered right now, and we've got every parent calling us and wanting to find out what's going on and so forth. So we're kind of between a hard place and a rock right now with the parents. But if we can expedite and get an answer sometime this week or tomorrow, it would be great. We can go ahead and start forming the teams and letting the parents know what day the season will open. Again, it's a great thing for the community. I cannot express, I mean, I coached 15 years ago, and I still have kids come up to me and recognize me as their coach. And, you know, these are kids that either played in college, or they are, you know, business leaders within our community or our government and so forth. So it's kind of a good feeling. But if we can expedite the process, I really appreciate it, and I think the kids would appreciate it too. Thank you.
I would like to ask you to, Ms. Piedra, can you please contact Mr. Verdugo and Mr. Gray and set up a meeting with them and find out what issues we might be able to help with? Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, is that regarding the lighting, is that an IID issue as far as the lighting, or is that something that we can do in-house as she meet with them? Maybe that can be.
Based on my recollection, it appears that we have done some electrical work out there. I would need to touch base with Chris Legakis, our park supervisor, and find out what the situation is. And also, if they have in fact submitted their paperwork, then we'll certainly take a look at it. Some of the issues we have is sometimes some of these leagues call us at the last minute to schedule. I know staff has asked for the leagues to provide their schedules in advance so that we make sure that we properly, obviously, provide the lighting to them.
And both Mr. Verdugo's number and Mr. Gray's number are on the information sheet.
Yes,
so
we'll make
this
sure to
from
get
them.
that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. David Hernandez. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
My name is David Hernandez. I live at 110 Driftwood. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you for the city council. About almost 10 years ago, you approved me to get paint and a brush and take the graffiti down. And my second thanks I want to go to is the new chief of police. Since he's been on my board, my neighborhood has been a little bit more safer and all that. I'm finally glad that we got a good person, a good chief of police. I live at Drip between Escherman and Smoke Tree, and during the 25 years I lived there, I've had people doing sex acts, smoking grass. I even had one person get killed there. So ever since the new chief, we've been going that's gone down quite a bit. I was kind of glad to hear the opening statement this afternoon with the person that was talking about the homeless. Well, this is a part of the problem that we're having with the homeless where I live at. They're costing the city thousands of dollars every year making holes in a city fence. And I called the city to come out there and fix it. It takes a while to go out there and fix it, but this last time it took 90 days for them to go out there and fix it. The reason you see two kids there is because it's very interesting to go out there and play at the railroad tracks and go out there in my neighborhood. So they go out there and play. The reason I'm here to tell you something about this, I'm more concerned about my neighborhood kids getting hurt in the railroad tracks. And then the city be held accountable because I came here in November and asked you to fix this fence. And then just got fixed last week when I said I was going to come in here and complain to the city council.
I'm sorry, where is this fence located at, Mr. Hernandez?
This is Driftwood and Smoke Tree on Escherman Road. And this fence belongs to the city council. Yeah, she's been to my house.
Thank you. It's on the other side, Mr. Mayor. If you go 4th Street by Holiday Inn Select, it's right in that neighborhood.
Yes. And then this fence faces the railroad tracks and everything and all that. And you can see the picture where you see my neighborhood kids going across right now, and they're out there playing in the railroads and everything. I'm more concerned about the kids than really about the fence. I go out there and I tell the kids to come out there, they might get hurt. But I'm more concerned about the city being liable for not fixing something that I already brought up, 90 days ago. That's my main concern.
Is that a city fence?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it's 20 years ago when that subdivision was built, that fence was built on city, it was dedicated to the city. We went through that, and I think we've repaired that fence quite a few times. we really need to look at is, and for our public works director, another solution, because they cut the fence regularly.
Well, when I bought the house, my biggest concern was that I was hoping it would go brick all the way, and they didn't go brick all the way. They went chain link. My property's brick, and they went chain link. And that was my main concern, that I didn't want that, but by that time, I already bought the property. But then the next thing that I wanted to complain and bring up to the attention, I went up to the ratios over there, and I told them that this was a little bit too big of a project for me to paint over. This is all the graffiti facing the railroad track. I know you can't see it from the freeway, you can't see it from anywhere else, but you know what? I know it's there. My neighbors know it's there. You know, we can say, you know, the hole was there. Let me put it to you this way. The hole was there. The guy comes out there in the graffiti, and says, oh, it's too muddy for us to go out there. We can't get, the truck doesn't get struck. But you know what? It doesn't take too high of a big rate to patch the holes over, go through the hole, and start spray spraying. But no, they took off when they had lunch instead of going doing that. Because they said it was too muddy for them to go out there, because the truck would get stuck. They could have passed the hose over the fence, walked through right through the hole, spray painted it. But they didn't do that. They went in and break. You know? First of all, I want to say congratulations to him. He's also a good friend of mine, Eddie, the chief of police. I want to say he's been doing a great job since he became aboard. My neighborhood's a lot safer. But you talk about the homeless thing. I've already had bikes stolen out of my neighborhood. I already had everything, and they all run through that hole through there. That hole through the fence. Everybody. Right now, if you want to go see the homeless problem I have in my neighborhood, go out there on Interstate 8 in the railroad tracks. There's like 6 of them living there. You talk about the homeless thing. Why don't we go out there and face it? Don't talk about it in here.
Mr. Duran, can you meet with Mr. Hernandez?
Actually, my public works, we're gonna look at, we wanna take a look, you said we will, but we wanna look at, get that graffiti painted over, but also come to a better solution on the fence. Because I think we repaired that fence the 10 years I've been here.
Well, in the 30 years that I've been there, you already repaired it, and I have it marked down. You already been out there 25 times.
Yeah, we've been out there, we go out there regularly, and they cut it.
25 times.
We need to come.
You talk about the homeless, homeless costing the city money. This is where much of your budget goes through. You're fixing that fence.
Okay. Well, we'll talk to Mr. Duran, and we'll see if we can come up with a better resolution to that problem.
Well, thank you very much for giving me your time, and thank you for your understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
I have another request for public comments by Mr. Mark Pipkin, but that relates to an item that's on our consent agenda, so I'm going to ask that we pull item number 9 at a consent, and then we'll hear from Mr. Pipkin at that point in time. Okay? All right. Consent agenda items are approved by one motion. Council members or members of the public may pull consent items to be considered separately at a time determined by the mayor. I am going to pull item number 9 for discussion. Any other items that the council wish to pull?
No more than what you've announced already, item 9.
Okay. So I'd like to, I'm ready for a motion to approve items.
They're working on it.
Okay. Are you ready, Dan? Okay. Tell me when you're ready. Okay, items 4 through 8 and items 10 through